There is a specific kind of silence that traders know, not peaceful silence, not the silence of a quiet morning or a still evening, the silence of 2 a.m. screen glow, the rest of the world asleep, and you are still there, not because you want to be, not because the setup is perfect or the conditions are right, but because something will not let you stop. I have known traders who describe sitting at their desk at 3 a.m., hands shaking slightly, eyes burning, down more than they should ever have let themselves get. And the person they love most in the world sleeping in the next room with no idea about the account balance, no idea about the last 4 hours, no idea about the version of you that only exists when the rest of the world goes dark. That distance between that room and the screen, that is not just exhaustion, that is loneliness, and it is one of the most unspoken parts of this entire pursuit. Nobody tells you about the isolation when you start trading. They tell you about the freedom, the independence, the potential. Nobody mentions that the freedom comes with a very specific kind of aloneness that is almost impossible to explain to someone who has never felt it. Because trading does not just happen on a screen. It happens inside you, constantly. Every position you hold is a psychological event. Every loss carries weight that follows you out of the room, to the dinner table, into conversations with people you love, into sleep you cannot fully reach. And the people around you, the ones who care about you most, they can see something is wrong. They just do not know what it is. And you cannot find the words to tell them, not because you do not want to, but because the moment you try, you can already see in their eyes that they are not going to understand. So you say you are fine, and you go back to the screen. And the gap between you and everyone else gets quietly wider. Most people in your life will hear the word trading and think one of two things: gambling or getting rich. Neither of those things captures what this actually is. They do not understand that you have spent hundreds of hours studying something genuinely complex, that you have a framework, a system, a logic that actually makes sense when the emotional interference is removed. They do not understand that the losses are not carelessness. They are tuition, painful, expensive, necessary tuition in one of the hardest disciplines a human being can attempt to master. They do not understand that the obsession is not addiction, or at least not only addiction, but also the pull of something that feels like it is always just within reach. So when you lose, and someone close to you says, maybe you should just stop, they mean it with love. But what you hear is, I do not believe in you, and you cannot explain why those words land the way they do without sounding defensive or delusional. So you say nothing, and you carry it alone. I want to talk about that trader at 2 a.m. for a moment, the one staying up while the people they love are asleep, sleep deprived, emotionally raw, running on something that stopped being rational hours ago. This version of you makes decisions the daylight version of you would never make. Larger position sizes, trades taken without setups, losses chased, rules ignored entirely, not because this version of you does not know better, but because exhaustion strips away every layer of discipline you have built and leaves only the rawest version of the emotion underneath. Fear, desperation, the need to fix it before morning, before anyone wakes up and sees the number on the screen. There is something particularly devastating about that last part, the secrecy of it. The way the losses feel heavier when you are carrying them alone in the dark, when the only sound is the hum of the screen and the breathing of someone sleeping peacefully who trusts that you are okay. That weight is not just financial, it is the weight of feeling completely unseen. Here is what makes trading loneliness different from other kinds of loneliness. You chose this. Nobody made you sit down at that screen. Nobody forced the obsession. Nobody required you to care this deeply about something so few people around you will ever understand. And that choice makes it almost impossible to ask for support without feeling like you have forfeited the right to struggle. Because the people who love you will say, if it is making you this miserable, why not just stop? And you cannot explain that stopping is not the answer because the pull is not just about money anymore. It became about something else a long time ago. Proving something. To yourself. To the version of you that doubted this was possible. To the people who raised an eyebrow when you said you were going to trade for a living. The loneliness of trading is not just the isolation of sitting alone at a screen. It is the isolation of carrying a pursuit that has become so deeply personal that sharing it fully with anyone feels almost impossible. Because to share it fully, you would have to show them everything. The losses, the cycles, the 2 a.m. version, the broken rules, the times you swore you had changed, and most traders would rather be lonely than be that exposed. Here's what nobody talks about. The loneliness does not just hurt emotionally, it actively makes you a worse trader. Because trading requires honest self-reflection. It requires the ability to look at your own behavior clearly and without defensiveness, to see the patterns, to acknowledge what is actually happening rather than what you wish was happening. And that kind of honest self-reflection is almost impossible in complete isolation. When there is nobody to talk to who understands, no one to say, "I did that too," or "I recognize that pattern," or simply, "I know what that night feels like." The distorted thoughts have no resistance. The story you tell yourself about why you traded that way goes unchallenged. The justifications compound. The blind spots stay blind. Isolation does not just make trading lonely, it makes it harder. The traders who find consistency fastest are almost never the ones who white-knuckled it alone in silence. They are the ones who found even one other person who understood. One conversation that did not require explanation. One moment of being genuinely seen inside this pursuit. That connection, however small, changes something fundamental about how clearly you can see yourself. So what do you do with this? The first thing is simply to name it. Loneliness in trading is real. It is not weakness. It is not something to push through or ignore or medicate with more screen time. It is a genuine psychological cost of this pursuit that deserves to be acknowledged honestly. The second thing is to stop trying to explain trading to people who will never understand it. Not because those relationships do not matter, but because asking someone who has never felt this to fully understand it is setting both of you up for frustration. You do not need everyone in your life to understand trading. You need 1 or 2 people who do. Even a single conversation with someone who has sat at that same screen at 2 a.m. and felt that same specific weight changes something. The loneliness does not disappear, but it loosens slightly. It becomes shared rather than solitary. The third thing is to stop hiding the reality from yourself. The 2 a.m. trading, the sleep deprivation, the decisions made in the dark when discipline has been completely exhausted. Those are not just bad trading habits. They are signals, the loudest possible signals that something needs to change. Not just the strategy, not just the risk management, the relationship you have with this pursuit and what it is doing to you when nobody is watching. One day, if you stay with this long enough and do the real work, you will sit down at that desk and it will feel different. Not because the trading got easier, but because you got quieter. The desperation will be gone. The secrecy will be gone. The 2 a.m. version of you who traded in the dark trying to fix something before morning, that version will be gone. What remains will be something simpler. A person who trades with honesty, with boundaries, with enough self-awareness to close the screen when the day is done and actually be present for the people on the other side of that door. Not because trading stopped mattering, but because you stopped needing it to fix something it was never designed to fix. The loneliness of trading is real, but it is not permanent. It eases the moment you stop treating this screen as the only place you are fully alive. There is a whole world on the other side of that door. It has been there the whole time.